Okay, citizens, here we are, Canoe Cam 2012, and we're going to get kicked off with some stout on stout action.
That's hot.
The vibe on the show is you're just three buddies that I've never met before in my life, but when you watch the show, that's the vibe. Was that a conscious decision, or did you kind of fall into that?
I would say it was a conscious decision. We were, I think all three of us were, you know, we had been in and out of like different like homebrew clubs and, you know, people training for BJCP, you know, certifications and craft beer, this, that. I think this was before Cicerone. So, but it was sort of like, we just didn't want that vibe of the know-it-all. We didn't want the vibe of, you know, like this is off-putting. And so we purposefully went into it with the idea that, you know, we'll focus on the individual and the reasons why, you know, and then those things will come naturally. But we have to start from almost like, why would we do this in the first place? Well, it's because we like making stuff and we like sharing stuff. And we find that kind of fun and interesting, and there's history and there's all these stories. And yeah, I think it definitely was we always said focus on the why, not the how, because there's plenty of resources out there to tell you how to do this. People wanted to know the story behind the beer. They wanted to know that these were real people. If you don't connect with that element, you're just kind of, I don't know, it's just very superficial entertainment at that point, you know, and that's what we wanted to avoid.
Jake, that you keep using the word stories. It took us a season on this show to figure out that, like, how to make beer, that was good for 1 or 2 episodes. Every glass of beer has a story. Every recipe has a story. Is that something you guys figured out right away? Because it took us a season to figure that out, maybe the first half of the first season.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a baseline understanding that we had just by virtue of working in homebrew retail, right? We were all at Northern Brewer. Jake and I had been there for a few years. We brought Chip on kind of explicitly to start the video project. Again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the sensory experience, right? Like, you need to like make pale ale compelling. You need to make porter compelling. You need to make a Pilsner kit interesting enough to get somebody to buy it without having tasted it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think we were all really not just aware of, but actually pretty practiced in like how to make beer sound appealing to people, right? That's something we've continued doing in our professional lives since. But yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that a lot of craft brewers today have kind of cottoned on to as well.
It seems like the challenge is this. You have 2 audiences that you have to please at the same time. You have your home brewers who, and I say this with love, can kind of be know-it-alls, right? And then you have people that are being introduced to things, and you have to make both of those people comfortable. You have to make the audience that knows maybe even more than the 3 of you know, happy that they're watching, and then also all of the people that will say that they got introduced to all of this when you started the television show, people that knew nothing but just knew that you were 3 fun guys to watch. I wanted to ask you about the challenge of like the Venn diagram of people that know nothing and the people that know everything. How were you able to, on your show, please both of those audiences?
I think that going into it, we all knew we were the perfect sort of like archetypes of stages of a home brewer, you know, where and Chip, I know you talked about this, where Mike was like, he's the guy. He's the guru. He's been doing this the longest. You know, he's got the biggest system, all grain. You know, has done a ton of research into beer history. So, like, you know, he's going to be playing that role. I'm sort of somewhere in between, where I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't know a lot. So, as a host, I can ask the questions that, like, I truly don't know. So, if I don't know, there's new people who don't know. Or I would ask the question like, you know, if I didn't know much about homebrewing or beer, this might be a question I would ask.
If someone's talking to Mike and they're using a bunch of terms that only people that are very deep into it would know, that doesn't do your audience any good.
Well, you know, here's the thing, right? So you can satisfy the uber geeks. You're like, oh, these 2 know. But then Mike, in his infinite wisdom and clever manner, will find a way to like pull that aside, maybe make a joke about it, and then explain it in terms that Chip and I would understand. You know, and that's the secret sauce. I mean, really, that's one of those secret sauce things that like you can't really replicate that. You can't script that. You can't go and hire that. It just happens, right? It's who you have in front of the camera. It's who you have behind the camera. It's who you have editing, you know, that just has that intuition to say, you know, how do we position this so it's both satisfying to the uber geek, but not intimidating to the brand new person.
Kind of like the Beatles.
Kind of like the Beatles. Dude, exactly like the Beatles.
What did I
Full
say?
circle. I was going to say, too, like one of the luxuries we had 10 years and 9,000 breweries ago was that craft beer was at a different level than it's operating at right now. You know what I mean? Like the advances in customer or consumer, I guess, knowledge, that consumer knowledge base is much higher than it was. You know, certainly like range of beer styles is more elaborated now than it was back then. Yeah, I think it was a different time.
I just like making stuff. You know, that's why I did it. It wasn't because I thought I could make better beer. I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to say that I, as a home brewer, could make a better beer than a commercial brewer. But does that beer taste better to me, the one I made myself, because I made it? Hell yeah, it does.